right, everybody, welcome to the Distilled Buildings Technology Podcast.
Where smart buildings are shaken, stirred, and data-driven.
I'm your host, Jason Shear.
I'm your host, AK.
And today is a guestless episode. Actually, like AK and I are the guests on the episode. We've had an awesome run of about 12 episodes with guests for our first year, and we figured we'd just like spend a little time with you guys talking about what we've been up to and like trends that we're seeing in the market.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Good to see you, Jason. It is exciting. We've had a long run, 12 guests, counting still. But we've been through a lot, quite a bit of events and a lot of motion in real estate. Let's talk about the first one we did.
No, but first whiskey, right?
Oh, that's right.
This is the Distilled Buildings Tech Podcast. So what's in your glass tonight, AK?
It's the usual, but this time it's the Penelope whiskey.
Nice.
This bottle,
is that
I have
the
one
cigar series?
That's the cigar series.
Nice.
I actually ended up putting it in an orange and took a little bit of sugar, torch it, and it's delicious.
Cool. And you did that like in a span of like 5 minutes, like from getting home from the office.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Just, it's a ready, set, go. It's just torch, maple syrup, a little bit of sugar, and then torch it, pour it on top, and it's really good.
Yep.
How about you?
I think in that cigar series, I'm trying to think, were we in Savannah at Realcomm like earlier this, maybe like late summer, and like we both like spotted that bottle on the shelf and we're like, oh, it has a big P. It says Penelope, but I don't think we've seen that one before.
No, and it's I think one of their cigar series that's just released actually.
Yeah. I think it was the first one, and I mean, I think like most things Penelope, it'll be the first of many cigar series bottles.
Yeah. What do you have in your glass?
So I'm opening a fresh. It's a Penelope kind of night.
There you go.
So the first thing, and I've shared this with you, but my local shop, they called me a couple of weeks ago because I always harass them about like getting certain things in, and they have this Penelope premix old fashioned, and it's black walnut bitters, like rye, kind of like their rye whiskey and bourbon. So it's like a blend of like rye and bourbon. And I've had a couple of other like bottled premixes. Bullet has a premix, like both Manhattan and old fashioned, but this is insane. Like it's really, really good. And the best thing is it's 38% alcohol by proof. So you can put it in the freezer and it won't freeze. And almost like it turns into a syrup in the freezer. So it's really, really good, really easy drinking. But what I'm actually drinking tonight, and this is another bottle that my shop got in, and it's another Penelope, and it's their F Cancer like collab. And I'm always like skeptical of anything that's like a collab or like it seems like overly promotional. So I saw this bottle at the shop, and then of course I came home and did my research, and it got really, really good. It got really good reviews, and it has a great story behind it, like with the founders. So
I saw the article. It's amazing. Suggested. We'll put it on the show note just for people to if you want to actually read it. Yeah, it's an excellent read.
Yeah, smells really good.
Smells good. Awesome.
It's a blend, straight whiskey. See if it says anything else on here. Yeah, so 38% corn, 37% rye, 2% malted rye, 3% malted barley. It's always cool whenever they put the mash bill on the bottle.
Nice.
So, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, it's good. Super smooth. Good depth. Pretty complex. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So like, I think we talked a little bit about like events. Like we were at Realcomm earlier in the summer in Savannah, which that's always a good. Realcomm's kind of interesting because it's not like Vegas every single year or like Orlando every single year. They kind of like move around. So it was nice to be in a I guess a little bit of an obscure city like Savannah.
Right. Yeah, it was amazing. Great conversations, awesome individuals, obviously as usual.
Yep.
Um, and obviously the driver there was owners that are directed to find a solution for either their tenants or as landlords that want to change the real estate market, and that was the theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think between like Realcomm and Cornet have that in common, right? Is it's a lot of us, industry folks, but also, the biggest part of the audience is, either tenant side customers or building owners and landlords. What are some of the themes that you've picked up on, through some of these shows throughout the year?
Yeah, I think mostly what we've seen was the real estate change or the focus around understanding occupancy more and more. Obviously, everyone has smart spaces or want to have smart spaces, but what I think the common theme that we both saw, or at least I saw heavily, is every single person that was interested was trying to figure out how do I make sure that I understand my current occupancy and how does that give me enough options to build my new building, whether they're retrofitting space or consolidating or creating a new one. The mandate of coming back to the office is not a mandate anymore. It's here. I mean, specifically in New York City, we've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a theme anymore. It's an actual mandate that you got to come to the office to do, especially in a Class A building. But now, as an owner, or as a tenant, or a landlord, you want to know how am I doing in my real estate? Should I be building more? Should I be building less? Understanding your occupancy trend, knowing what people want to do and how they behave, especially after where we are now. And we have a lot of data, and people want to use that data and apply it into means and methods to figure out and correlate
Mm-hmm.
what should be my next build.
Yeah, the RTO, like I think we went through a period where we used like sayings like magnet, not a mandate, but
Yep.
most customers across all segments. I think financial services probably leading the way,
Yep.
but everyone is moving towards more days back in the office. I think what we saw, at the beginning of this calendar year was somewhere around like an average of like 3 days in the office,
Yes.
kind of like that Thursday, Tuesday through Thursday. But I would say 50% or more of customers are like back 5 days in the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's still you still have the hybrid of
Mm-hmm.
people want to work 4 days and then use one day for administrative work, etc.
Yep.
But ability to do full time, working from home or just not ability to come back to the office. I think we're seeing that kind of like dwindling away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly driven by understanding the occupancy that, okay, if I have people coming to the office, I adjusted a little bit around 23 and 24 based on hybrid work, but now people are actually coming back. What do I do with my space that I have either available or the one I'm thinking about building?
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the heavy trend on wanting to expand. Customers have the ability now to expand and wanted to do something similar to what they have done in 23 and 24. Start building with technology first, then real estate last, or construction last. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it is what customers are doing.
It's good to see that script kind of get flipped because I don't know, like the 25 years I've been in the industry, IT was always an afterthought. The design was done, the layout was complete, and then they brought in like IT, AV, other people that kind of fall into the Div 27 side and say, oh, like fit this out with technology. So you're
Yeah,
starting to see that a little bit more of like customers bringing either a consultant or manufacturers or even their internal IT into the conversation earlier.
absolutely. There are more conversations that are much early on around the build and the way we build around technology that I've seen in the past. I
Yeah.
100% see the change of every single customer that wants to understand the new space. They bring in the technology experts, consultants, manufacturer, helper, partners to give them that help that they need to understand where, what, how, at what level should they
Hmm.
build the next space. And I think that's huge for us because it allows them to now the customer is actually educated around what they have seen, where should they build, and the next level of occupancy is important to them.
Yeah, and I think the aha moment that we've probably seen, in customer briefings and workshops is the business, real estate or employee experience or HR. They're finally starting to see that IT has so much telemetry in the environment, right? Like whether that is, Wi-Fi that's always been there, giving them at least like some directional guidance on like how, how space is being used and how people or devices are moving throughout the space. And then secondly, video conferencing infrastructure has gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years. Like, we can't talk about anything without talking about AI or computer vision models. Video conferencing equipment and even video surveillance equipment can help once again provide us at least some direction on how space is being used and what current occupancy looks like versus I think there are like two old school methods, which are time and motion studies, the old like clipboard and clicker method, which still baffles me today when I see customers that that are still using clipboards and clickers, but even like over the top options of um, we saw like this shadow IT movement more like on the productivity side, maybe like 10 years ago. We kind of see like almost like shadow OT in spaces where facilities or real estate employee experience teams are like coming in and like sticking sensors under desks or like in common areas. And sometimes like IT doesn't even have a clue that this is happening under their nose.
Yes, and we're seeing more of a change now that some of the technologies are being looked at as heavily from IT than OT. In back in the days, to your point, technology was being dragged after fact, and then IT had to deal with it or say, okay, we don't support it. You guys, facilities, you guys can do what you want. We're in conversations where IT is being involved, has a say, but not only that, has a decision to make whether or not they're going to be able to support it because the at the end of the day, it's still an equipment that requires some IT involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even I mean, obviously you mentioned the word AI 10 minutes in at least.
Yeah.
We know that
I
that's,
tried to hold. I tried to hold off.
yes, I think we're in our conversations now we're bypassing some of these words, right? The word that we hear now is agentic. I might not have just an LLM, but I might have an agent or multiple agents in the building that are doing some of these work. I mean, we're seeing it now with the consumer side,
Yep.
but in the real estate, that is the conversations that we're having is, okay, well, we understand agentic is here. What kind of agents can I augment some of this workload?
Mm-hmm.
The easily one that we've seen that's being done is just scanning the network and scanning the ideas and devices and being able to automate some of these workflow around support and availability of products and downtime that we had in real estate. I mean, back in the day, this was to be, someone complains and then there's a ticket, and then someone gets to acknowledge the ticket. By the time you get to an actual outcome, it could be 24 hours. With agents, it gets done immediately.
Yeah, I think like just thinking about like we probably think about agentic AI from like a building operations standpoint of how can you use ML models to optimize. But one thing you kind of like tickled my brain on a little bit was I think we're going to see like a hybrid work 2.0
Yep.
in the not too distant future, probably within the next 18, months to 2 or 3 years, where, you know, managers will be managing like hybrid workers, right? Like
Yes.
some human workers and some AI workers. I think that'll
Yep.
be maybe hybrid work, 2.0. I'm curious to think about like what is the workplace of the future to support that model of both like digital and human workers.
It's amazing that now we're actually in the midst of some of these conversations where we're seeing real estate changing to even robots,
Yep.
drones, humanoids in a space, and the use case of some of those started with one of the articles I saw with a customer that wanted just surveillance around humanoids.
Mm-hmm.
And their objective was not to eliminate the facility managers, but to augment some of this workload and
Yeah.
ability to do that around the data aspect that they have now, right?
And even if it even like the most simplistic use case of like a robot worker in the office, like cleaning staff, right? If you had like
Right.
a robotic like commercial vacuum service or something like that, like what that needs more than anything is a location aware infrastructure.
Yes.
And we'll be deploying, like a lot of times we talk about Wi-Fi density to support RTLS or real-time location services in an environment, for tracking users and other assets in the environment. But when we start thinking about autonomous vehicles and drones within an environment, like they're going to require like high density Wi-Fi and sub-meter accuracy within that space. So I think today we're thinking about like future proofing the environment with high density Wi-Fi to support employee tracking, and how space is being used, but that same density will support um, this new hybrid work environment.
Yeah, and a lot of this conversation even revolves around security, right? You know, hybrid work 1.0, had dealt with ICE and VLANs and segmentations. 2.0, what happens? Um, how do you secure? How do you segment agents from each other? How do you put enough guardrails around that? And some of these conversations were in the forefront of it. Both of us, for both sides around the
Yep.
network piece and the operational piece of equipments. And I feel like customers that are asking these questions are much, much ahead in their thinking, in their thought process. And the
Mm.
only way to do it is obviously when they're future proofing their space. Building the traditional way doesn't get you anywhere.
Yep.
You would be in a complete, you would be completely behind thinking that you can build the traditional way that you did for the past 25 years and you're going to achieve that outcome. It'll be either expensive, cumbersome, or not achievable in some cases.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about like occupancy and understanding how space is being used as the still the kind of the prime directive for most real estate professionals, whether it's on the landlord side or tenant side. um, Class A absorption, so like that premium real estate. When we think about NFL cities, New York, Atlanta, Denver, like that Class A space is, if not maybe not fully let, but like it is like at a high rate of lease, almost like pre-pandemic levels.
Yep.
Where does that leave everything else, like in like the building stock?
I think it's important for some of these customers because they're looking at it as, okay, if my lease is about to expire and now I have two choices. I can either
Mm-hmm.
consolidate, don't do anything. Well, clearly, don't do anything doesn't get you anywhere because the lease is expiring. So either you expand or you shrink. And I think we know that some of this data that we're giving our customers allows them to make certain choices. Either those choices are very critical to their decisions. One, either when they're expanding, at what level of expansions they should look at, from a capital exposure, from an OpEx exposure, should they be looking at spaces like what we have shown them, or should you be looking at spaces that are in less of a size but more of a
Mm-hmm.
density around hybrid work and the ability to bring employees, in 3 times a week versus 5 times a week. So these are the conversations that our customers are having, and even on the net energy side,
Yeah.
just understanding the energy flow and how much of that they're using at this particular place. I was shocked on that amount because sustainability is top of mind still. And for them, the ability to understand, I have an operational expense, but I also have a human aspect to this. I talked to a customer, and their objective was, okay, I understand if my space is not operational, but it's designed that it sustain a specific power.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking to their engineers and architects to see if they can go to an eco mode that is like almost a deep sleep for a building when they know it's not being occupied. I mean, these are conversations that are way different than what we had in the past, where customers just built a building and just said, okay, fine, I'm going to occupy it, and I hope
Yeah.
that when I'm not occupying it, some level of automation gets to save me money. These are customers that are asking above and beyond just savings, from a human element too.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I mean, a lot of people have been on this journey with Cisco and prop tech in general for the past 5 or 6 years, and I'd say at some point there was a lot of emphasis on ESG and sustainability goals like net zero targets. I don't know whether it's the current you know macro or geopolitical environment, but like sustainability seems to have taken a little bit of a backseat. But the same, like, sustainability was about cost savings, right? Whether that
Yeah.
was operational energy cost, carbon cost. And what I'm hearing you say, and I think what we're both seeing, is customers are still trying to find ways to save cost.
Yes.
I mean, there's the algorithm to bottom line is pretty simple.
It's very
Um,
simple.
and like cutting operational costs, which energy is a huge component of, is one way to get there. And you know, kind of back to AI, like you can't flip a newspaper or open up Twitter without seeing something around kind of this next wave of energy crisis. I think we've seen like residential and consumer rates starting to go up, commercial rates in certain geographies going up by the pressure of AI data center build out. And I kind of call it the rob Peter to pay Paul problem,
Yeah.
right? Like we're
There's
gonna,
only a finite amount of electricity.
yeah. I mean, and until we have either a massive breakthrough in energy, or SMR regulation gets fast tracked or loosened, like the amount of generation capacity that we have as planet Earth is somewhat finite for the time being. So data center utilization and pressure is going up. So how do we supplement that? I think we supplement it by trying to make our buildings more efficient, more reactive, more like energy intelligent. And I love, like, we've all probably seen eco mode in different places, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
on your air conditioner in your car, but why can't our buildings run in eco mode today? Like,
Yes.
why isn't that an option whenever we go into the office?
Yeah. And there's incentives now. I've seen them in one use case. It was a hospital where, sorry, in hospitality, it was a hotel where the customer would track your energy consumption and reward you on it, and give you the ability to actually participate in that reward.
Yeah.
So the ability, just the same way that some products did in residential, where they show you the amount of the amount of savings or sustainability savings to be measurable in dollars or leaves or whatever the metric
Hmm.
that you need. Buildings should have that. And this is a conversation I'm having still with engineers that are building the space. The thought is always, okay, I have to build an envelope. It has to have this amount of energy. I should design for that amount of energy.
Hmm.
What if there's a time where the amount of energy is dynamic, and your building design should be X, but it should also dynamically switch based on the occupancy.
Yeah.
We don't have to have that set demand. I mean, we live in high density of data right now on the consumer side, but we're so slow in the energy demand of buildings. It's extremely slow. When I say slow,
Hmm.
it fluctuates in 24 hours. Right now, there's data rates in microseconds. Um, so that's where we're seeing the shift is, okay, if I design an envelope, I can design it with this criteria, but then if I have everything inside of the envelope measurable, I should be able to dynamically switch my energy rate
Yep.
and be able to supply that back, um, at a level of, or at a speed where at least it makes sense to be able to shift it around the world where I think it's important.
Hmm. Do you think so? So think, like, we've all seen numbers and infographics around like buildings, building systems, and like the rough percentage of energy impact. Like HVAC is usually around like 60%, lighting is 20%, people moving in lifts are like 10%, and then everything else.
Right.
um, so HVAC is like, that's the biggest chunk. Conditioning is like the biggest chunk that we can influence. And traditionally, a BMS system would only kind of have, they kind of had like blinders on, right? Like they could only see what they could see. And a lot of HVAC systems are like not zoned down to room level. Maybe they have PIR sensors at a very rudimentary level that are telling them, occupancy, or, something's moving in the space. Do you see customers like leaning in that area of, demanding from their landlords or building owners around how they can lower their energy impact?
Not yet. I think customers, especially not anchor tenants,
Mm-hmm.
they're using the base build energy as, okay, I'm gonna get what I get and I'm gonna use it for base design. And maybe this should be my minimum. Because that's the level of, that's the level of technology we have in the space. Remember, unless you're an anchor tenant, you can't really dictate how much energy you need in the building. But if you're a tenant, you get a base build or you get a base energy level from the building, and your job is either to augment that to create the comfort. And that's the level of optimization that we're seeing customers do. Maybe their eco mode is go to base building, and that's probably the least amount they're going to pay until the
Mm-hmm.
building catches up. Because some of these buildings are just historically, or basically just in construction. It's hard to change the infrastructure. It'll
Yeah.
save time.
They might have, floor level zoning, or, maybe like neighborhoods, but not like, VAVs, like
Individual
per
office.
conference rooms or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so they'll opt in for the minimum energy that's required to the building or to the
Mm-hmm.
floor, and then they'll just adjust it around the way and make sure that they optimize that piece, because that's the piece they can control.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a shift around. Okay, if I'm a tenant and my next tenant is saying that, and the following tenant and the rest of the floor is the same way, can now the BMS, which if for decades and years has only been a glorified HVAC controller,
Mm-hmm.
can it now look at other ecosystems, and there are some out there that are actually doing that, to get them into a position where they can actually control
Mm-hmm.
the building, rather than just my only portion of HVAC or portion of lighting or portion of silers.
Yeah.
Because that, I think that's been the challenge, is we're only been focused on specific. Like when we do self-driving cars, we don't just have a self-driving wheel controller and a
Yeah.
self-driving um, engine controller. It's self-driving car, and we've
Yeah.
been driving pieces of the puzzle, and we're making those pieces smart. Now it's time to actually put in FSD mode. Okay, go.
Yeah. Well, that's a good metaphor, like self-driving car, because like whether it's an EV or an ICE vehicle, like we kind of have our own like triple net lease structure with vehicles, like, right, like we're
Yeah,
responsible for the vehicle cost, the maintenance, and the energy, whether that's gasoline, diesel, or electrons.
right.
Buildings are the same way. Like most, would you say like most customers have a triple net lease, right? To where
Totally, yeah.
they're paying for the energy that they use, but in a lot of cases, they're handicapped by the base building system or the building infrastructure of not having like visibility or control over that energy that they're paying for.
Totally. I do see that that's a major impact, and it
Mm-hmm.
comes from the cycle of doing construction business, right?
Yeah.
In cars or in electronics, you have the luxury or the ability to just switch and say, okay, maybe I don't want this consumer device, maybe a phone or a laptop, and I can easily switch it. Think of a building, right? You don't get to make the choice to change the infrastructure. It takes 5 years a minimum to do a refresh,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes 7. And if you're in a long lease, you take 12 years to make a decision.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing a lot of those infrastructure changes because customers went through the cycle. If they haven't done it pre-pandemic, they've been through the pandemic, and now they're at the level of, okay, I do have no choice because a lot of leases are expiring and I have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But they're being informed around, okay, what level of construction should I be using, and what level of product or infrastructure I need to put in my building to support this ecosystem change.
Yeah. Or even like one thing that we've at Cisco, and it's kind of weird to think of a technology company getting involved in like lease consultation, but like we're helping customers understand what they can negotiate in terms of lease around like BMS or base building system partitioning, right? So that they can actually get, API access to, whether it's through BACnet REST API, Modbus, like whatever, like to their like little slice of base building systems.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We've been seeing use cases where even, like for example, radiometers on the rooftop to
Yep.
do shade automation. As a tenant before, you didn't have access to that because there was no riser, and you probably didn't have access to the roof. And now, because of automation of technology, sensors on the window covering and ability to change the base building and having control over the BMS, those are conversations that tenants are having where landlords have to make some of these modifications to accommodate for the technology that's in play.
Yep.
I mean, it was different than when customers were asking for 5G cell service at the 40th floor.
Yep.
DAS was the only choice.
DAS was the only choice. And now we have carrier offload and open roaming. And that's really interesting. So I had a conversation with a customer last week while I was in Melbourne, Cisco Live Melbourne in Australia, which man, we want to talk about like the ultimate jet lag experience. It took me all weekend. I got back home on Friday, and it took me all weekend to recover. Like last night was the first night that I had a good night's sleep. But like I was having a conversation with this customer, and they're in retail around DAS versus like Wi-Fi and open roaming. And for DAS, it's very, very attractive, and providers are motivated to subsidize that because providers get data out of that. Like they get like customer acquisition data from associating to to DAS, whereas especially in retail, you can see the same thing for commercial office space, hospitality, healthcare. If you think about like building out your infrastructure with the capabilities for Wi-Fi offload, then the customer gets to keep all of that client data. Like they get, they can do, mobile push notifications and, and like, sentiment analysis and things like that because, they're on their network versus the provider's network.
Very interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. So I know like DAS is a very popular like in building wireless solution, but Wi-Fi can do the same thing and more.
Exactly.
And it puts a little bit more like control and data like back in the hands of the tenant.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Any other? So you guys had, I think while I was in Melbourne last week, I saw some photos pop up on LinkedIn or something like that. And I had like other side of the globe, FOMO. You guys had like a real estate and whiskey event in New York.
Yeah. Design-in partner is a 2-day event. The design-in board members met on Wednesday, and that was or obviously change the ecosystem and help the design-in partners. But Thursday we had the bourbon tasting by Ada sponsored, and yeah, it was amazing conversations. Obviously, we didn't tell people. No, I'm just kidding. We did tell people.
you say the whiskey for the second day though. Yeah.
Like, okay, we'll stick around and make sure we drink whiskey. It was amazing. Great conversation. Yes, we had a few selections, obviously, in the whiskey part, but the objective was to bring open-minded conversations in, obviously, the major hub, which is New York City, and allowing some of these partners to come in with an open-minded and have a conversation around, here's the ecosystem, here's where we are. It's been years now. We've seen ups and downs in ecosystem, providers, products, partners, and just open the mic and let them tell us what went right, tell us what went wrong. Brought panelists and conversation and kept it really open, and then exchanged hands and took a lot of feedback and went to out to the do some networking and have some drinking piece. But it was a great conversation overall, and there's a lot of outcome. Most of it around the ability to say, when you do a project and you especially, you put your neck on the line, whether you're a stakeholder, stakeholders range from, you take the owner's level, it goes from owner's rep to MEPs to architects to GCs to ECs to low voltage to products to partners. You have a lot on the line, and you have a lot of stakeholders that need to I don't want to say change mindset, but just adopt to a decision that an owner can make sometimes, or
Yeah.
stakeholder can make. And I think some of these decisions, when we see the progress of projects and the size and the ability to showcase the outcome, at the end of the day, we are here for a reason, because the outcome is greater than any. I wouldn't call it, obviously. There's greater outcomes that related to energy saving, comfort, etc. But you look at the overall build space and allowing us to showcase some of the use cases. It's only getting better. Honestly, it's showcasing that, yes, with this technology, we're going to really change the way construction has been done. Yes, we've been saying it for a while,
Yep.
but guess what? No building has stood up and went down at the same time. You have to have a building for a long time to showcase the analysis, the progress, the reasoning, and we're here. We're showcasing customer success stories, use cases, and even more now. Here's why you did it earlier, and here's the benefits that you get now. When we talked about future proofing, nobody knew what AI was like,
Yeah.
5, 6 years ago, or maybe we did, but we just didn't tell people. And then now we're in agentics, and when we're in areas where you can do analytics much quicker, you can do predictive maintenance much faster, you can have specific level of integrations and comfort because you are on the same network. These are conversations you couldn't tell somebody 5, 6 years ago. They had no clue what that meant, or maybe if they did, they would just it was not monetary. They couldn't see the value. But now you look at it, it's much more relevant conversation around. Okay, if every light, Mr. Customer, was a data
Mm-hmm.
point, if every shade was a data point, if every desk was a data point, and by the way, it's on the same network that you would have put your access point and your microphone and speaker and collaboration device and cameras. Oh, how does that look for a data structure?
Yeah. One network to rule them all, and I do think that like when Cisco started this like next evolution or generation of smart buildings, it was really nice that we had Pen 1 as a showcase, and then Atlanta and London and Paris and blah blah blah. But um, the proof really comes out and the value comes out is when we see our customers like taking like this next step into into smart spaces, whether that's the project that you had with Mauser and Fort Worth, or I think just this past week Cisco, like we released a couple of case studies or customer wins with TripAdvisor, and with Clark County, around like how they've integrated technology earlier in the design process. And was it a little disruptive? Totally. Right. Like no one is going to deny that it's disruptive to how buildings have been designed and built for the past 150 years. But the net effect is better visibility into infrastructure and having that data to make, to make decisions going forward.
I'll agree.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so you had the sort of the whiskey and CRE advisory group later in the week. But you did double duty last week.
I did.
Like
There was
you were at
Partner Summit the
Cisco
week
Partner
before.
Summit.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And those were kind of probably two very maybe polar opposite audiences, right? Of like traditional IT reseller versus a designed in approach. Like, did you feel from Partner Summit that side of the house is getting the telegram?
Absolutely. I think, well, at least a few. The motion is there. Part of the accelerator program is to educate the partner ecosystem and allow them to participate in this motion, knowing that obviously this motion is going to help them. And surrounding some of that education piece around, okay, it starts with what's in it for me. I mean, every customer, every partner, every person as a human being, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
conversation always, what's in it for me? And allowing them to see what's in it for them, which is one, the ability to have stickiness, whether it's around their own products now that they're positioning for their customers, ability to stay relevant because most of their customers are asking these questions, and
Yep.
some of them are actually involved in deals they don't know. They just get dragged into the deal when it comes to execution time, and we want them to be part of the deal when it comes to design and early on stages, because that's when you actually win big and
Mm-hmm.
you win larger projects. It even came through with an actual award. So MHT
Dang.
got yeah,
Nice. You got some glass.
I did some glass.
Yeah.
we got the ecosystem of excellence around future-proof workplace, and I think that's an honor for us. Jason Gallo and the team, Tara, Andreas,
Mm-hmm.
Rob, the ability to be there, to have the conversations, to work on next steps, and be present and be recognized. I think it's an honor, and it's a grateful opportunity that we have to be able part of the ecosystem and showcase, right, the growth, the success, and celebrate the wins, and focus on the feedback when there is opportunities where we can do better. By all means, it's we are technology that's growing. I've seen it in the LED days. I still remember it.
Yeah.
We started in condensing lighting in 2009, 2010. I was shipping product out one door and it would come back the other door, only because the LEDs couldn't withstand being in the heat for so long.
Yeah.
And people thought that happens. And look at us now. I don't think I've seen a design of a building or in general without being LEDs. And this trend or this technology is not going to be any different. It's just a matter of time. Again, it's just the way we do business in construction. It just takes so long.
Yeah. And I think like one thing that's important about that ecosystem concept is I almost think about it as like making the table bigger, right? And bringing more people to the table. I was, so when I was in Melbourne last week, I had the opportunity to go visit a customer, and it was nice to get out of the convention center. Like it was a 4 or 5 walk, to go visit this customer who's in the, service, let's say a service provider space. And we met with their workplace technology team and their video surveillance team. And those directors of those departments, like they knew each other, like kind of like in passing in the office, but they didn't realize like the data that each one of those, those stakeholders had available, right? Like workplace technology and IT, like they have a lot of, Wi-Fi video conferencing, data. And then the video surveillance team, like they manage cameras, access control, executive protection. Like they have a lot of other data sets, but those data sets were just like locked up in silos. So even just that one meeting with a customer where we brought those two people on, into the same room and talked about like what their pain points were, like the video surveillance team, they're like, oh, like I could use some of that IT data. And the workplace team was like, well, I could use some of that, people counting data from, from surveillance cameras to enrich my, my data sets. So I think like breaking down those silos is a huge part of the ecosystem play.
Oh, 100%. And that's huge. I mean, obviously, you talk about a jet lag, but think of the the level of information and knowledge that you get to see on the other side of the world. I mean, it is the other side of the world for me. It's 23 plane, 24 hours. One of the longest.
Man, it was so going there was not bad. Like I slept really well, like on the way to Melbourne. The only bad thing was I landed at 4 o'clock in the morning. So trying to find like something to do at 4 o'clock in the morning is challenging, right? Like, like an early check-in is usually like 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, not 4 a.m. So I just kind of like wandered around the city, got some fresh air, found a couple of like 3 cafes, and then finally a breakfast place opened at 7. But
yeah, it's tough, going to a whole different country, not knowing anyone. Well,
yeah.
not having to call a friend at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. The great thing was like I have an awesome team over there, and not at 4 a.m., but like in the afternoon. My guy on my team, Jeff and Rob, like they're both cyclists. So I went and rented a bike, and we went for like a nice bike ride around Melbourne, which is, I think, amazing. Like the best way to fight jet lag is endorphins, and try to like power through the day, don't take a nap, and then get a good night's sleep.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think the only other, just like, thinking back over the past 6 months or so, there's another really good show that I went to in Denver with another one of like the Cisco Engineering Alliance partners, which MHT and Ada are a part of, with Panduit. So Panduit has this, it's either biannual. It's every 2 years they have this conference called GSIC, which
Oh,
I thought GSIC was Global Systems Integrator Conference, but it actually stands for Grow, Share, and something else I can't remember right now.
okay.
But the cool thing about that
You
conference
said it's once
is
every 2 years?
once every 2 years.
Okay.
And the neat thing, like trying to like, like the metaphor for Cisco it'd be like partner summit at the beginning of the week, and then they have their global sales conference at the end of the week. So I just went for the like sort of like their version of partner summit. And the amazing thing, and a lot of people think about Panduit as, passive infrastructure, cabling, racks, patch panels, like all of the things that quite frankly a lot of times we take for granted in the built environment. But one area that we've leaned in a lot with Panduit is around fault managed power. And we had Mahmood, who's the product management director, on the Panduit side a couple of months ago on. So it was great to be able to to present to a pretty large audience, 1,000+ people, like with Panduit, like what the Panduit plus Cisco FMP power over Ethernet like story is all about. But the audience, like Panduit's audience, they're that, I think they're kind of like that magical audience of integrators, general contractors, MEP firms. Like it's a really broad audience that
Yeah.
Cisco is like a technology company. Like we usually get like access to like IT integrators, and then
IT.
we're building
Yeah.
this, this bigger ecosystem. Like a Panduit, man, like I learned all about, and this space, like manufacturers reps,
Yeah. We know it
that
very well.
they're
Yeah.
like an extension of, of like a manufacturer, whether it's Panduit or MHT, Salesforce, that it's kind of foreign to Cisco. Like
Yeah.
we have our channel, like our resellers, but um, it seems like there's a little bit less exclusivity on our side versus on the manufacturer's rep side. Is that a good way to sum that up?
Yeah. The VAR system is eat what you kill. The manufacturer's rep is exclusive territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In the
Um,
technology world, in ADA side, we have the VAR system, and the traditional lighting system is even, different because you have lighting reps, and then in the technology side, you have manufacturers reps, and then you have distribution, and you have VAR.
yeah,
Way different go to market. Got the benefit, I guess, or the
yeah,
curse to be working with all.
yeah,
But it is quite different of all channels of how to go to market. A lot of pros, obviously, and cons for each of them, but it's how the world works, right?
yeah,
Regardless of the buyer personas, you still touch on areas where you do business the traditional way or the VAR way, plus disti, plus manufacturers rep, like lighting rep, plus dealers in furniture and shading. So there's all kind of ways that each of these industries again transact to the buyer, and it's just the way we've done business forever.
yeah. The message is getting out there though. Like I remember probably 2 years ago now, Mahmood Ibrahim with Panduit and I, like we presented to a consultant forum, and we just got like a show of hands, like how many people have heard
Oh yeah,
of fault managed power or class 4 power, and it was like
yeah,
it's kind of crickets. And at GSIC three or 4 weeks ago in Denver, Denise Lee at Cisco, she's our VP of the Engineering Sustainability Office and is the prime sponsor for engineering alliances, and then all this work that we're doing around like real estate accelerator. She had like the day 2 keynote, so like a room full of 1,500 integrators, specifiers, ECs, GCs, MEP firms, and she asked that same question, like how many people have heard about fault managed power. And I would say 80% of the room across those different personas raised their hand. And to me, that's like an acknowledgement that number one, we got an energy problem. Number two, there's a technology that can help us, solve some of the problems around energy.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that's there because we're seeing it. Every conversation is around energy, data optimization, and occupancy. When I was at Partner Summit this year, two things I learned, right? How Tim had Chuck having Subway for lunch before going on a customer dinner, and Chuck asking the partners to have an actual Splunk practice. And I'm hoping in the next year or two, we will have Chuck saying, I want all the partners to have a real estate practice.
Yes.
Because that's the next logical move, right? We're seeing the move. Partners are on board. We're going to get there. And now it's the time.
Yep. Well, and like partner summit, it was like the week before I was in Melbourne. And I think whenever that like keynote or address happened, whether it was Chuck or G2, there was something to the effect of like for partners, for resale partners, like your fastest path to revenue is Splunk.
Yep.
And to me, that's like data is your fastest path to revenue. And then real estate is like the use case for that data infrastructure.
Yes.
So like there's a thread there.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And the ecosystem, is extended, like that we talked about, like all the great stuff that's happening in the Americas and APJ. Sam Wood on our team really spearheaded a great show in EMEA at this UK smart building show, where we showed up with Schneider Electric and the intelligent ready building architecture that we've been working on with them over the past couple of years. So it's not localized. Like this is kind of a global problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're dealing with all theaters, as you know, and one theater at a time. And we're seeing the traction from all aspects, right? Customers have demands regardless of where they live. And most of our customers have presence, as you know, in all different theaters.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been like a really fast catch up, AK. I know that we've been running pretty hard for the past 3 or 4 months with conferences and things like that. But it was great for just you and I to spend a little bit of time and share what is top of mind for us going into the holiday season.
Same here. I think it's exciting time. We're getting to what I call it a wind down for a lot of people, but we take every day on its own, and I think it's going to be an exciting year to finish to go through. And yes, I think it's good to catch up. Obviously, we talk, and I feel like sometimes we talk often, but at the same time, we don't get to catch up.
Yep. Cool. All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. Follow the show, like and subscribe. We'll put a bunch of links in the show notes for you to dig a little bit deeper. But we'll see you in a couple of weeks.